This video is going to be a film study look at the Ravens' explosive third quarter offensively, really dominating the Broncos team that apparently had not given up a single touchdown since week one in the third quarter. As we know, the Ravens entered halftime with a 24-10 lead, courtesy of the 53-yard touchdown pass from Lamar to Zay Flowers. We were averaging 9.6 yards per play at that point, boosted up, obviously, by that 53-yard catch and run for a score by Zay Flowers. The Ravens' offense is so interesting now because they're able to shift into different modes from play to play. Kind of talked about it 3 or 4 weeks ago. There's an investment of being able to move from 21 to 12 to 20 to 11 personnel and be effective at such a wide range of techniques and concepts. And there can be games at times where it's too much, meaning you're not executing any of those things at an incredibly high level. But when they are, I think they have the highest ceiling of any offense in football, and I really don't even think it's close. We're going to look at two possessions in the third quarter that utterly knocked the Broncos out. In fact, it reminds me of two things, like moments in movies where a bad guy, the evil character, proves that they can shift shape into something else that is even more scary and more devastating than you thought you were dealing with initially. Number one. Number two, it reminds me of combat sports whereby a fighter lands one strike that clearly knocks a guy out, but it's in the middle of a 2 or 3 strike combo, and the second strike knocks them out as well, or finishes them off, I should say, because they're already unconscious. That's what the Broncos defense looked like to me. This is a 21-play sequence. I'm not going to show all 21 plays. 149 yards. So the Ravens are above 7 yards per play for these plays in the third quarter. That's only really pulled down by the fact that we were inside the 10 so many times. It is a truly dominant performance, in my opinion. Let's get to the film. And we will have a significant number of plays to go through that involve Derrick Henry. This has been Ricard and Derrick Henry on the field at the same time. I am really interested in what we're accomplishing when we have two disparate types of players on the field at the same time, meaning Ricard as the fullback / tight end who can lead block, and then Zay Flowers, the speedster, the guy who can make people miss. We try to zone this, a zone toss, so Linderbaum goes up to get the defensive tackle 99, and then Stanley works up to the second level. Instead of pin pulling it, we get a missed block. I did not think that our receivers and tight ends blocked well into the boundary, to be honest with you, and this is an example, in my opinion. Talking about right here, Nelson Aguilar stepping down, unable to control the edge defender. Derrick Henry forced to bring it back. You can see what it could have looked like, being only a 1-yard gain, first play of the third quarter. The screen's going to be really dark. It's not my doing. This is the camera angle that we were provided in terms of the NFL film. So this is a 2nd and 9. Really easy for Mark Andrews to get open here because this inside linebacker is pushing to get depth. I think they're trying to play like an invert Tampa 2. So typical Tampa 2 has 2 corners in the flats, 2 safeties up high, and you allow the Mike linebacker to run vertical in between the 2 safeties. In this case, watch what this boundary side safety does, pushing to the flats, and the boundary side corner, I think it's Surtain, is going to roll to half field safety. Hopefully those lines and the way that I explained it make sense. And you can see Andrews is underneath of that Mike linebacker who's looking for a vertical in the middle of the field. So and you see this, etc. In this case, it worked against the Broncos because it was just too easy. Mark Andrews got a free release onto the right hash. If you had it to do over again, you were a Broncos fan or a Broncos coach, you would say, we want to get hands on that guy. All right, so a lot of this 21 personnel stuff with Ricard on Sunday in the backfield was twins. So we had 2 receivers to one side, and one of them would motion out to one side, typically the slot, to try to expand or open up a potential second-level defender, meaning move him out of there. Also display the coverage. We ran power a lot here, and in this case, it's power to the weak side where the 2 receivers were. Henry hits this downhill for 12. The camera is going to do some weird stuff in terms of the lighting. I noticed it while I was getting the plays this morning. It's going to be dark for a moment, and then as the play begins, it will lighten up. So, but in any case, you got the edge defender getting upfield here, getting at Ricard. So the kick-out block is happening a little bit deeper in the backfield than normal. Falele is wrapping for the front side inside linebacker, and we're comboing up to the backside inside linebacker. In this case, it's Makari. I thought necessarily in this video. So here's the end zone angle of this one. And again, we're kind of talking about these twins receivers. Out of 21 personnel, you're losing one of them off screen. The frame is cutting it off. But we're going to get motion out. Falele is going to pull and wrap. And then Ricard's kick-out block is going to happen a little bit deeper in the backfield than maybe the way you draw it up. Makari is going to close off the Mike linebacker. Ricard, a little bit of a stalemate. Henry, a little skip through. And then he's trying to set this guy up right here. He's trying to set this third-level defender up with an inside hedge and then take this back. He's thinking home run. Am I absolutely on a roll offensively early in the third quarter? The one thing that I want to continue to mention is how often we're changing personnel groups, number one, and then how often we're changing shape. So we can be in 21 personnel, like we're going to be here in a moment, the next play that I show you after that 12-yard run by Henry, and we can be in the I, a classic football alignment, old school, if you will, and then we can go to some newer concepts or newer formations, I guess, modern spread concepts because of what Likely can do. There is the Likely and Andrews can do. There is the Likely / Kolar dynamic whereby we're using Kolar as a blocker more often. I would like to see us run. And in fact, here in a moment, you will see us run away from Ricard to the receiver side. I think there still is that tendency that's been there a long time since pretty much Greg Roman was here before and preceding Todd Monken's arrival. So now we're after that weird snap by Linderbaum. It's a little high, I think, and Lamar tries to get a handle on it. We're very fortunate that one wasn't intercepted. Pass incomplete to Likely. So we're now into a 2nd and 10. And this is a tough situation because he's been playing so well lately, number one. But number two, we obviously had 2 big drops last week in the loss to the Browns by Bateman. And this one kind of hurts to try to evaluate and just talk about. We love running motion and then getting into a wheel. Here, Lamar, for whatever reason, doesn't think he has a lane to Bateman initially. And so what I mean by that is there's going to be a nickel defender off the edge. Bateman is going to chip and then slide out into the flats. Looks like maybe Lamar doesn't think he can get it out there, or he's looking in the other direction at that time. So we're talking about right here, if we could maybe get this ball out to Bateman in the flats quick, but that blitzing defender is going to elevate, try to knock the pass down. Lamar jukes him or just basically sidesteps him and then gets away from another defender. It's 2nd and 10. Yeah, Lamar definitely has an opportunity to scramble here. He wasn't in scramble mode often yesterday. You will see one of them in a moment. Unfortunate because unfortunate that we get the drop by Bateman, I should say, because it's there for us to pick up the first down, possibly make a bigger play. He almost kind of reminds me of guys in basketball who are really good at what the coach has installed. So set plays, but then set routes. But then in unsettled situations at times, we get drops like that one. All right, so that sets up a little bit of an ominous moment at the time. We're on our first possession of the third quarter, 3rd and 10. After the bad snap, ball that's tipped up in the air. While watching it live, I was like, oh my goodness, this could be intercepted. And then the drop by Bateman. So we're in a situation, we're already up 24-10. Offense has been effective in the first half. And Lamar, for the only time on the day, goes into scramble mode, which is a loss of 1. I love this play, and I love how Lamar adjusts this. I love the fact that we're doing it, that we're willing to. One thing I will complain about is I think the original call is to run to Ricard's side. And as I mentioned in the lead up to some of the plays for this video, I think that tendency has been there for years. We're systemically tied to that tendency. The more we go away from it, the better off I think we'll be offensively. I'm not saying we shouldn't run to Ricard's side. I think we should use him as bait at times. So as we get through this play, you'll see Lamar clearly has checked to something. If you remember it live, he had taken the mouthpiece out, communicated something to Henry. You heard Ricard, or you saw Ricard look to his left to the receiver, Flowers, and we're in 11 personnel. So Ricard is the only fullback / tight end. Aguilar is up here. And it's a really nice job of him and Rosengarten engaging to the top side. It's essentially outside zone to the weak side, away from the tight end, away from the fullback, which in this case is Ricard. Like I said, I love this tendency. I know that we run the ball into the boundary a lot. Why did Lamar do it? There's probably a count and an angle relationship that he's been taught to look at. I thought I had the end zone angle. My apologies. There's probably a count. You also have the strong safety rolled up to the boundary where Ricard is. And then since it's 11 personnel, nickel defender walked up to the field. So it's a balanced look, some would say. If I had the end zone angle, which I don't, what you'd be able to notice is there's no way on a run concept here that this backside linebacker can get there. He can't get involved with the play. If we were able to run it here, if we ran it here, which I think was the original intention of the play, this is the backside inside linebacker because he's canted off of the midline. The midline is right here. So because he's so closely aligned to the midline, he would be able to get to the point of attack. I'm not saying they would stop it or shut it down, but the point is we're easily able to get to the backside guy. Falele also comboed up nicely on this one to the Mike linebacker, the guy that I talked about being near the midline, and you can see what I didn't include it. That's a dynamic that I think is real, and that's a dynamic that I think we've got to explore more of, especially in big games. All right, we kind of go into run-heavy mode a couple of times, getting down here inside the 20. In this case, this is 21 personnel again. So 2 receivers to the top side, tight end to the downside. Ricard has motioned in to be the fullback. It's a short toss. It really doesn't look like much is here because the front side inside linebacker is there to disrupt it so quickly. Credit to Henry for making something happen here and getting 4 yards out of it. Falele's done a nice job pinning down on 99, who's stunted to the inside gap. Ricard and the front side inside linebacker are on the train tracks with each other, collision. And there's just no way for us to get to the backside inside linebacker. Bateman, I think, is supposed to get the front side inside linebacker, pin him down. The front side inside linebacker filled so quickly that he couldn't. And so Ricard had to deal with him. And then as a result, the backside guy was unblocked. Also a defensive tackle involved, holds Henry to a 4-yard gain. Even those 4-yard gains, in my opinion, out of the eye, set things up. I will have a complaint here on this next play. I think this is entirely predictable, a situation that the Ravens have run pretty much all year, even dating back to 2022, Greg Roman's last year here. So Ricard in the game, 21 personnel, tight end backside. We've got trips. I think the Broncos and everyone in the NFL knows where the football is going here. Out of pistol or under center trips with Ricard as number 3, it's pretty much stretch or outside zone to that time in every single case. Look, we also get an absolute loss here with Ricard against the edge defender who disrupts it. That's the guy who's called for tripping on the play here. This is another example of Henry being so good. This should be a loss of 3 or maybe a loss of 4, in fact. He's able to evade the edge defender, get away from a second guy. It's only the third player who makes contact with him at the line of scrimmage that we're still able to, even if there were no penalty called here, it's still a 1-yard gain. Now, it's a heavy price to pay from the standpoint of utilizing one of our premier guys, Derrick Henry, to take 2 or 3 shots like that, just get to 1 yard. So it's not sustainable. It's not something we want to continue to do. This is the touchdown for that possession to culminate that possession, put us up 31-10. Really, at that point, I think the game is getting close to be over. And Falele, I think, is too wide. I just think he's too wide on this. He's giving the opportunity for someone to get underneath here. And in fact, that is what happens. That guy makes contact with Henry, who's able to break that to make the guy miss. My apologies. I thought I had that one. Sorry, I'm trying to mess around with a couple of graphics, and the timer system doesn't seem to be able to work. I was attempting to put that Lamar picture on a timer that would show up every 32 seconds. But in any case, Henry's just too good. He's just too good for when you get him downhill at or beyond the line of scrimmage and a defender is there, as long as he has a leverage side, a two-way go, he's going to be able to win most of those situations. You saw an example of it there. Browning, I believe it was, is in the backfield because he beat Ricard on the trip stretch play. And Henry makes him miss, jukes a second guy, and gets tackled, albeit for a 1-yard gain. And then on the touchdown run, Falele, I think, is leaving too much space, too much of a gap there as the puller. And the underneath guy's able to go underneath of him, make contact with Henry, force him to bounce it. It's a downhill power play, not necessarily supposed to be bounced. And in this case, it ended up working out in our favor. One guy that played really well that I'll definitely do a film study video of is 2 sacks on the day. Why did it happen? People use stats and data almost too much nowadays. All 4 of the Ravens sacks were beyond 2.8 seconds to throw. Well, there's ways to play defense. There's more ways than one way to skin a cat. So watch what happens here with Harrison and this tight end, and then how we get to a 4-man rush safely and cover up this route to the tight end with Hamilton. And then I don't give you the all 22 angle, but that route by the running back into the flats is also covered. Finally, we have had difficulty with that route in previous weeks because this tight end got tied up with Harrison, who dropped out. Now Hamilton is in great relationship with him. He's able to have more cushion, play at more depth. It's a 3rd and 2, by the way, so theoretically they could have possibly thrown the ball to that. What we did here has an impact on the routes. Trenton Simpson, you lose Trenton Simpson a little bit here in the frame after the play. That's Simpson lined up as an edge defender. Harrison's going to jam too. We are essentially forcing both of these guys, the receiver and 85, to release through that funnel there and the running back out into the flats, which we've had tremendous difficulty with in recent weeks, is covered up easily by Simpson, number 1. Number 2, we've got 2 receivers to the point of attack, both of which being impeded. It took us too long to get there. Well, number 1, we got there. And number 2, that was the design of the defensive structure on that play. You don't have to be such a heavy blitz team, and I've actually advocated for us to bring more pressure lately, especially. In that situation, beautiful call by Zach Orr and those guys playing team defense, adjusting to some of the things that teams have been doing against us in recent weeks. So we're up 31-10. Zay Flowers touchdown late second quarter. The drive that gets us down there, 10 plays, 70 yards, and then we get the football again, and we basically go into ultra power mode in some cases. This is a great play call by Todd Monken. We've gone run action with Henry to the left. All of our linemen and tight end are working to the left. So the Broncos, when they see the play action, they react to it. Lamar understands he does have a pocket here, even though it's kind of broken. Except it's 11 personnel. If you recall, it was inverted. Ricard was over here, and Aguilar was over here. And Lamar checked to the run concept. Henry hit it for 20. Here, Ricard is into the boundary out of 20 personnel, set up as the lone tight end to the boundary. And now you have the same situation. The Mike linebacker is canted away from him to the weak side. And on run plays here, that Mike linebacker can get there, number 1. Number 2, these guys messed this up, Rosengarten and Falele. Falele's stepping lateral to try to take him over, and Rosengarten thinks Falele's going to take him over. Falele thinks Rosengarten's going to stay with him, and they're both wrong. And the D tackle ends up flashing. If we were able to get to that guy, if we're able to take him over with Falele, who's unblocked? The Mike linebacker, the guy that I talked about on the previous iteration, fits perfectly in my opinion. Credit to the Broncos for putting him there and recognizing the direction that we normally want to run to, and also credit to Lamar for checking to run it to the opposite side, to Aguilar's side, the first time we ran that play. The first time Todd Monken called that play that I pointed out earlier in the video, again, I think it was called to run to Ricard's side, and Lamar changed it. This is just an adaptation of a concept that's been around for a long time in the Ravens offense. So it's 21 personnel. Ricard is on the field again. We go play action. Ricard is helping block on the right side. Running back, after the play fake, is going out to the left with that concept. Now, when I say that this is just an adaptation of an old school Ravens concept, here's what I mean. Andrews, for years, was lined up on our right, on the line of scrimmage, and we would get a play fake to one side, and then Andrews running the classic over from right to left. That's essentially what occurs here, except he's emanating from the left, and it's a sail route against a man-to-man throwback concept by Lamar. The only difference is that the run action, albeit briefly, is to the left with Henry. Big-time win by Andrews here in the middle. Bateman was stuck running clear-out routes often during the day against Surtain. Wise decision by us. He's got 3 interceptions on the year. And so to avoid him, I think was a proper decision. So good strategy by the Ravens there. So we did get a holding penalty on Macari. I've skipped that one. We're now into a 1st and 20. And this is where I'm going to start talking about the Ricard and Flowers element just a little bit. In that the concepts we run with Ricard on the field are power run concepts, direct flow run concepts. And with Flowers on the field, we can be this deep passing attack or screens like we're going to show here, and Ricard can be used as a tight end to assist. It's a huge advantage to have Ricard on the field at this point with the way that Monken is running the offense. He's not necessarily involved here. It's a screen. You're just going to have Bulls on parade here from the backside, and all Flowers has got to do is get behind this wall of defenders, and he's got a huge lane. And in fact, that's what occurs. It's a 16-yard gain out of 21 personnel. Flowers motion here. We've run the wheel yesterday against him. We've run the same motion, and Flowers bring his route back to the inside, even though he wasn't targeted. And then now we go with the same exact motion. It's not man. The nickel defender kind of walks out there, and Lamar zips it. Very similar to a throw the screen, except this time there's a tunnel aspect or tunnel nature to it with all those backside guys on parade, essentially trying to get there so that Flowers can cut off of them. And then we go into power football mode, and I think use Henry in a brilliant manner as a hammer to finish a statement, finish a drive, and then as bait. And I'm talking about the touchdown pass to Ricard that we'll finish this drive with in a moment. I did intend for this video to be, and we're going to pin down here, and it's Flowers. I didn't think we blocked well at the point of attack. Do we need Flowers on the field for run plays? Yes. Do we need him on the field trying to pin down on edge defenders? Probably not. It doesn't work out in this case, but we've got likely in motion Stanley pulling to the edge, so we've got great setup there. If we're able to get this edge defender pinned down for just a moment longer, Henry's going to be able to set things up, and Stanley isn't going to have to peel back to that edge defender that Flowers lost. It's a trickle-down effect. This DB, I think it's Ross, ends up being unblocked. He's the guy that Stanley would get to, and lo and behold, he's the player that forces Henry out of bounds. So I don't know what our hours is always to the backside. So, we've got to do it at times. I get it. It was not effective in that situation. This is another holdover play from the Greg Roman time period in Baltimore. I call it stretch cut. And so what's going to occur on the play is Ricard's going to go backside and cut the edge defender, and Henry's going to go opposite. And it ends up being outside zone away from Ricard's flow. We used to run it out of bunch pistol or bunch under center. So you can see the split flow nature of it. Henry here, Kolar is winning for a moment, just enough such that that edge defender has to deal with him before getting to Henry. This outside linebacker getting upfield, Ricard cutting him. It only goes for 5 yards. Henry cuts it back off the edge defender who loses initially and then wins against Kolar. I love it because we're going away from Ricard. And statistics actually show in terms of obviously his catches, even though he gets a touchdown to finish this drive. But we still have to use him, I think, as bait sometimes. I really like this play call and the ensuing 2 play calls because Justice Hill gets the football. Derrick Henry's off the field. It's another power concept. Hill winds it back. I think this response here by their defense is kind of Steelers-esque. And so on the motion that we know is coming from this twins eye, I think we did this 8 times in this game. What's going to occur here is the edge defender is going to go up the field, not necessarily at that angle, but I kind of have to draw it wide so that this nickel can fit underneath. The Steelers do this, except they'll do it on motion away, and they've done it for years. So you can see the edge defender has stepped upfield, gotten himself out of position. Aguilar can't get to the nickel defender or strong safety, if you will. That edge defender actually folds back in and makes the tackle. Still, Justice Hill gets point. I don't know about you, but I was like, this game's over. It's time for us to get Henry and Lamar off the field. I thought they were on the field for another 2 possessions longer than they necessarily needed to be. Harbaugh and those guys are just Monken and those guys, are just rolling, especially against the Broncos defense that, to my knowledge, if I heard it correctly during the broadcast, had only given up 1 touchdown in the third quarter all year, and that was in week 1 against the Seahawks. This one was a fun video to produce. I probably went on too long. I am trying a couple of new graphics to make things a little bit more entertaining for you guys. If you appreciate the video, please let me know in the comment section. If you like the plays that I utilized to make some of my points, that even at the point of attack we had some issues blocking. Filele on 2 power plays is too wide, in my opinion. We lose the combo at the point of attack. Filele and Rosengarten, they're both wrong. They think the other guy's going to take him over. Receivers / tight ends into the boundary to our left did not block well. Aguilar, Flowers, both losing. Likely, poor angle, and not stepping to the edge defender also disrupted a possible bigger run for Derrick Henry. We had 107 yards rushing for Henry on, I believe, 23 carries. And in my opinion, we did not block as well as we could have. There is a tremendous scheme advantage to what we're doing, and asset development has occurred with Ricard. He's being used the same way, and many would describe it the same way that he was with Greg Roman. The difference is, at least in this game, in the third quarter, you got 2 different examples of him going away from the point of attack on a run concept. I think we need to get into that more, and to me, the data shows it. The effectiveness of how teams are lining up, depending on where Ricard is, to our left or to our right. I'm not talking about him at fullback. I think we can use that data against them if we're willing to run to the side where likely Aguilar or Andrews is. What's the problem with that? Well, I talked about it a moment ago, that we didn't block well at the point of attack with some of those guys. So, in my opinion, to go in there and score 41 points against this Broncos team, even though at times, in my opinion, we didn't block well at the point of attack, we could be better. Let's describe it that way. Tells you the ceiling, the true ceiling and potential of this Ravens offense. It's the most dangerous offense in the league from a personnel standpoint, from a variety of scheme standpoint. And then on top of that, you've got Lamar Jackson, who on these plays that I showed you here this morning wasn't really involved as a scrambler or an option on the keep plays at all, which is truly unbelievable that we were able to put up 40 points with him essentially playing a facilitator's role. I think it tells you how great a job Todd Monken and the offensive staff did this week leading up to the Broncos game. Of course, Lamar had to execute passing concepts as well to make it work, and he did. Another perfect passer rating for him. Appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think it went on too long, I understand. But I had a lot to say. I thought that third quarter was important, even with some of the poor blocking assignments or some of the plays that we could have blocked better in the case of our receivers, tight ends, and right tackle, right guard. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this video, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.